Host John Serenitas, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, John Sapichetti. John Lyons is on assignment, so he cannot join us this afternoon. Patriots with a 26-20 win over the Cincinnati Bengals. And John, I just want to get right into this one. I think the main story is going to be the injuries. I mean, you had four major injuries potentially to the Patriots with Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, both out for the game, ankle and knee respectively, or knee and ankle respectively, I should say. And then you also had injuries to Brendan Schooler and Kyrus Tonga. Patriots get the win. They survive. And I think had we not had the injuries, probably the biggest story would be them falling behind early 10-0 and getting off to another slow start. But the injuries are going to be the main takeaway here. On the one hand, they win, they improve to 10-2, win their ninth straight, overcome adversity. Adversity visits you during the course of a season. But on the flip side, the injuries are the bigger concern here moving forward.
Without question. I mean, when you see Will Campbell carted off, my heart breaks. The biggest problem I have dealing with football sometimes, and I love the sport, not quite as much as you do, but I love the sport. But when I see these young guys being carted off with potentially season-ending injuries, my heart breaks. Here's a young guy who's come in, has shown leadership, has worked his ass off. He's got a great relationship with Drake May. That's like his best friend on the team. He's gotten better every single week, and then something like this happens. My heart breaks for him. And also some players on the Bengals were getting injured as well throughout the game, which leads me to this point. Now, I'm only going to be really brief with this. The turf at that stadium sucks. Paycor Stadium and MetLife in New York are the two worst turfs in the NFL. You see an inordinate amount of injuries at that two fields because of the way the turf is. They just played a high school game on Friday night. The turf is like falling on cement. This is my biggest problem with the NFL is you pay players a lot of money, invest in really good fields so they don't have these types of injuries. I don't know if the turf caused Will Campbell's injury or Brendan Schooler's injury or any of the Bengals injuries, but it certainly didn't help because there's like no give on that turf. But to your point, as far as the game, if we get back to the injuries in a moment, I was impressed with Drake May. He was horrible in the first quarter. He looked all out of sorts. His throws to the left side were off, like he was, spooked a little bit. He threw a pick six, wasn't playing well. From that point forward, he played really well and was able to win the game somehow and show that resiliency that we like in him. But the injuries are the main story, John, especially when your left tackle, who's played so well, gets carted off. That's just a gruesome sight.
Yeah, it is indeed. John, you do have a little bit of background noise. I don't know what I'm picking up some background noise, but hopefully our listeners and our viewers aren't picking it up, but I am picking up some background noise. Just wanted to let you know that. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I don't know the status of the turf there, and in comparison to MetLife, I'll take your word on that. Nonetheless, these are major injuries that for the Patriots, if in fact the entire left side of your offensive line is out for an extended period of time, or even worse, the rest of the season, it's huge. This is a team that had been able to stay relatively healthy up until last week. You lose Milton Williams. That's a big blow. He's out for 4 weeks. Now, potentially, you could be losing the entire left side of your offensive line for a prolonged period of time. We don't have any updates on any of these guys, by the way. Schooler and Tonga could also potentially be long-term injuries. But this is a team that's been able to stay healthy for the most part, and it's really helped them get to this point and have the record that they have. I think it's devastating. I mean, look, if you lose Will Campbell for the season, and for the most part, he's played pretty well, had some bumps in the road, but overall, he's been pretty impressive as a rookie. If you lose him in particular for the rest of the season, it's a huge blow. And this is not a knock on Verdarian Lowe. I think he can be a serviceable left tackle. He's been a starter in this league. I know some Patriot fans are already panicking about it. But the bottom line is, if he were the long-term answer, you probably wouldn't have drafted Will Campbell. Obviously, he wasn't. He's a spot starter. He's a backup. He's going to have to start for you now. I don't see them making any drastic changes like moving Morgan Moses over there. I think Moses at this stage of his career at 34 is a right tackle. But nonetheless, if you lose Will Campbell for a prolonged period of time of the season, that's a huge blow to this team because this offensive line, for the most part, has played pretty well.
It really has. I mean, they'd only allowed 2 sacks against Drake May in the last 2 games before today. Will Campbell is playing better every single week. He seems to be more comfortable at that position going against all the great athletes in the NFL. And I think the 3 biggest reasons that the Patriots have improved from a 4-13 team last year and the year before to this year, obviously Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels are going to give them a lot of credit. They spent money on free agency, but they improved the offensive and defensive lines immeasurably over last season. Last season, their offensive line was a shit show. Their defensive line was pathetic. They couldn't stop the run. You sign Milton Williams. You bring in different coaches. Now that defensive line is good. Although, to answer the question that you asked earlier today on the preview show, yes, they missed Milton Williams. That guy is a stud. The Bengals ran for well over 100 yards today. Yeah. Chase Brown, over 100 yards.
First
on the offensive line, you've been that much better
this season.
Right, exactly. And then offensive line has been getting better every week, and now you lose Will Campbell. So, again, it doesn't look very good when you cart it off. A guy like that who's a big, tough football player probably doesn't want to be carted off, and he's being carted off, and it's a knee. And just, again, that just breaks my heart. That's the difficult part with football, because I see these kids that put their heart, soul into it, blood, sweat, and tears, whatever. They're all in, especially that guy. That guy is so likable, such a leader, right in the community already. He's Drake May's best friend. Let's just hope it's not completely serious. But when you see a 300-pound guy going on a cart with a knee injury, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look good when any player gets carted off, and certainly when you hear carted off and the word knee, and I don't want to read into it too much. He put the towel over his head. I mean, it didn't look good, at least from an optical standpoint. It didn't look good. As far as the game itself is concerned, you mentioned Drake May gets off to a really bad start, throws an early pick 6 to your boy Geno Stone. Nice job there, by the way, telling us that Geno Stone sucks and was going to have a bad day. Turns out he didn't. He had a pretty good day. But nonetheless, hold on. It looks like we lost John. And here we go. All right, John, are you with us? All right, looks like we lost John, but good old Willem checks in, and he says 10-2, let's go. And UConn won the shootout to get to 9-3, and Wilton is 9-1. Prep playoffs are approaching. Got to get to that 10-win mark. Yeah, absolutely. Big win for the Patriots today. It wasn't easy, of course, as we've been saying, Willem. They had to overcome an early 10-0 deficit, and they had to also deal with a series of injuries that, unfortunately, that's going to be the focus here now. It's not so much going to be about the game. It's going to be about the guys that got hurt and getting updates on those guys and whether or not they're gone for a prolonged period of time. Will Campbell left the game with a knee injury. Left guard Jared Wilson left the game pretty early with an ankle injury. They also lost Brendan Schooler and Kyrus Tonga, 2 key pieces to their special teams and their defense. So, again, that's the story of the day, unfortunately. It's not so much that they lost, but John is back here with us. It's not even so much that they won, rather, as much as it is about these injuries. But, John, as I was saying to you, I wanted to get back to the game itself. Patriots fall behind early 10-0. Drake May throws an early pick 6 to your boy Geno Stone. Nice job there. Oh, that's an up close and personal with John Sapichetti right there. He's mean mugging us, folks. Well, John's trying to figure out his situation. We'll take a question here from Lauren. Lauren Gaudette checks in. I'm available to join. A bad start, but they'll keep grinding and find a way to win. But these injuries could be troublesome. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't know what Lauren means by I'm available to join. I'm assuming she's available to join us here and talk about this 26-20 Patriots win. But, yeah, the injuries, as I said, they're going to be the topic of conversation here to the rest of today, tomorrow, and into next week. And, of course, it's a short week with Thanksgiving. But, obviously, these injuries come at an inopportune time. Now, you don't play again until next Monday night when the New York Giants visit town for Monday Night Football. But, nonetheless, you would have to think, and, again, it's purely speculation right now. We don't know. We don't have anything. The Patriots haven't put anything out. But as far as we know, as of now, the left side of your offensive line, they left this game with an ankle injury, a knee injury. Then, of course, you had Schooler and Tonga get hurt. But, yeah, I mean, this, as I pointed out earlier, and John is back with us now, I pointed out earlier that this team has been pretty fortunate in that they've been pretty healthy this year. That's been a big reason why they were able to get off to this 9-2 start. You hate to see this today because these are the kind of things. Health can derail a team that's playing well. Everybody deals with it. Unfortunately, attrition is the name of the game in the great sport of football. You'd hate to see it, though, because this is a team that's playing well, and these are the types of injuries that could potentially slow their momentum. Now, of course, they do have a bye after that Giants game, so it is coming at the right time. But, John, they've got to figure out a way now to get through this week, get through that Giants game, and get to that bye. And you hope that they can get some good news here in the next couple of days and maybe get some of these guys back down the stretch before the season ends.
The game itself was not a surprise, John. We talked about that on the preview show. I thought they'd win by 10. It would be an ugly type game. These are the games the Bengals play. They make a lot of mistakes. Today, the defense actually looked good. Geno Stone looked like Ed Reed out there, for God's sakes, after I blasted him in the preview show.
Yeah, nice job there. I know you jinxed it, and then he ends up with a pick six.
Yeah, and like I said, he was all over the field today. Their defense wasn't all that bad. It was just one of those games, it's November. You still haven't had your bye. A team's fired up, hoping that it can win and stay in playoff contentions. So they gave you a good effort in Cincinnati. The defense wasn't all that bad. Your offense struggled, and Cincinnati had a chance to win the game at the end, and Carlton Davis made a couple of really nice plays. So you get out of there with the win, but the injuries really are the biggest story that we're going to talk about for the next week leading up to Monday night's game against the Giants. Then you have the bye week, but obviously, fingers crossed that Will Campbell's going to get back this season.
Yeah, we'll see. And as far as the game is concerned, as I was going to say to you before we lost you, Patriots fall behind 10-0 early. Drake May looked off. I don't know if he got hit on that first possession and maybe he was dinged up. Again, don't want to speculate. I don't know what was going on with him. The Bengals were getting some pretty good pressure early on, but he airmails that tackle pass. It goes over the head of Hunter Henry. Geno Smith picks it off, brings it back for Geno Stone, rather, picks it off, brings it back for a touchdown. They did not look like themselves early on. Now, they put together a really nice drive. They get that Hunter Henry touchdown. They make it 10-7. And then Joe Flacco, inexplicably, which I don't understand for a veteran quarterback who's 39 years old, inexplicably looks off his primary, tries to dump it off underneath, sidearms it. He throws a pick six to Marcus Jones. And really from there, the Patriots were able to take the game over. Other than the late touchdown that Cincinnati scored, they really weren't able to get anything going offensively. But again, now it's 9 out of 12 games, John, where this team has given up an opening drive score. It is concerning. And if these injuries that they suffered today end up being long-term injuries and this team's depth now gets challenged and they're not as good, you can ill afford to fall behind early in games like that, because if you do, it's going to eventually catch up with you. I've been saying it all season long. It hasn't happened yet, but it will. You're getting to that time of the year now where more is at stake. You're going to get a better effort from your opponent. They got some big games coming up. You can't fall behind early. It's happened too much this season.
I think if you look at this game, if Jamar Chase plays, maybe it's a different result.
I agree.
Obviously, just
I
him
agree
alone,
wholeheartedly. They may not – look, let's be honest here. If Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase play, if the Bengals are fully healthy, they lose today. They lose today. The Patriots lose this game today. There's no question.
Yeah, because Burrow's not throwing pick sixes. He very rarely ever does that. Chase is going to cause a lot of problems with their secondary. Now T. Higgins can be freed up a little bit. He's double teamed because he's really their best weapon. No, if one of those guys or both played, I agree, the Cincinnati Bengals win that game because their defense was pretty darn good. They really only gave up 19 points to the Patriots because, of course, we had a pick six involved in there. So as far as Drake May early in the game, everything to his left side seemed off. He seemed like he was stepping in the bucket a little bit, opening up a little bit too soon, and the ball was not accurate. They did send pressure. He got hit early in the game. Maybe he was rattled by that, but he was able to get over all of that, and from the second quarter on, played a really, really good game. The Bengals also showed a lot of things they haven't shown all year for whatever reason. They set a little bit more pressure, which they normally don't do, and it kind of helped their defense somewhat today. But I was impressed with Drake May because, look, guys throw pick sixes. When Tom Brady came back from 28-3 against the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl, don't forget, he threw a pick six at the end of the second quarter. And from that point on, I don't think the ball hit the dirt. So great quarterbacks. They're going to have some bumps along the road. How they come back from that is the most important thing. And we saw that with Drake May today. From the second quarter on, he was just fine.
May finishes 22 of 35 for 294 yards, one touchdown pass. Of course, the pick six for the interception, passer rating of 87.1. So obviously, He gets off to the slow start. He's able to turn it on, does play better. It is remarkable to me that he is yet to have a 300-yard day. That's crazy. It's an interesting stat. But again, we talked about this in the preview show. It also shows you how remarkably consistent he has been. And that has been a hallmark of this team's success. Lauren Gaudette checks back in. That goal line stand by Cincinnati where the Pats had 6 to 8 chances to get it in. I felt that Cincy had a chance to win it at that point, or even to win it at that point, she says, or even win it. That toughness for Pats is apparent this year. That possession was very frustrating to me, John. You've got to get points there. And I think you can question it. And Vrabel did settle in and did go for the points the rest of the game. But there were a couple of possessions there in the first half where you're like, all right, take the points here. He goes for it on 4th down. But then in the third quarter, when they don't score there, that could have gone the other way. And again, we're not sitting here making excuses, and we're not trying to be negative. But if the Bengals are healthier, that goal line stand by Cincinnati in the second half would have been even a bigger turning point in this game, potentially. Their red zone issues continue. They can't really run the football well in the red zone. It's been a problem all year long. Their red zone offense isn't consistent enough. They need to get better in that area. We didn't see it today. That's still concerning to me. You got to get out of that possession of points, with points rather. For them to come away from that possession with nothing, again, they're 10-2. There's not a ton to complain about, but to come away with no points during that a possession where you have the ball on the 1-yard line, that's concerning.
It sure is. And again, if you fall 10 points behind Baltimore or Buffalo in the next month, you're going to be losing those games, I would think. I mean, again, not that those two teams are playing great, but they still have the quarterback that can add points to the ledger, right? So Joe Flacco can't do that. He's now looks like a 40-year-old quarterback who was sitting on his couch, 2 years ago and was playing in Cleveland earlier in the season. He looks like a 40-year-old quarterback. God bless him. He's done a pretty good job filling in for Joe Burrow without question. But if you're playing Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, those guys are going to build on 10-point leads. And now you're going to be down 17 points before you know what hits you because those guys are that good. And that could have happened today with Burrow and Jamar Chase. I think that would have been the case. So, yeah, that's a very, very difficult place to be in because the quality of your opponents with Buffalo and Baltimore are going to be better. And then whoever you play in the playoffs is going to be better. So you have to tighten that up. It just seems like they're asleep in the first quarter. In today's case, both sides of the ball, but they were fortunate and good enough to come back and win the game. That last possession that you were talking about, where they had 6 to 8 chances inside the 5 and came away with no points, that whole series was bizarre to me. Pop Douglas is covered by Garrett, the linebacker Garrett Rudd, or whoever his name is, which should never happen. Pop Douglas lined up against the linebackers, a mismatch, and we saw what happened. Then he gets the ball, gets a 14-yard run, and then you get the defensive pass interference against Kayshon Boutte. Next thing you know, you're at the goal line in 3 plays, and you can't get it in. You do score the touchdown, but Matt Collins is called for the pick play. That whole drive was like, man, this is frustrating to watch.
It was a great drive. It was a great drive. And again,
yeah.
And it drives me nuts because Matt Collins, keep running on that. You don't stop. They're going to call the pick every time. Yes, it is a traffic play. That's the whole point of the play,
right? To
free up the front side to backside guy. But keep running, man. It's a mesh concept. You don't stop. You keep moving. And I think that's frustrating. And it's super frustrating because I think if you score there, they probably start thinking about next week and Thanksgiving night. They're probably moving on. They're probably saying to themselves, we're not winning this game. But instead, you get the penalty, you get the ball at the 2, and then you can't punch it in from there. And it's really frustrating. They try to go, 23 personnel and run it, they couldn't. And then they try to go, and then they try a gun run, they couldn't. I mean, it's just, again, that's another area. Here we talk about giving up scores in 9 of 12 games to open the game to opposing teams. The red zone's another area of concern. So while they're 10-2 and there's a lot to love about this football team, again, today we saw some of their flaws come to light and the injuries now. I think that they're going to heighten a lot of the second guessing and concern that people might have with this football team. Looking at some of the other stats, the running game was not very good today. 107 total yards rushing. Travion Henderson led the way, 18 for 66. It was okay. I mean, Demario Douglas, as you mentioned, had that one carry for 14 yards. But overall, the running game was very pedestrian. It was fine. Hunter Henry, his third career 100-yard receiving game, 7 catches, 115 yards. But the Bengals are abhorrent against tight ends statistically, so that's not a surprise. The problem here is, John, outside of Hunter Henry, no one else did anything against the worst secondary in the league, not only just statistically, but physically as well. I mean, Stephon Diggs, 2 catches, 20 yards. Matt Collins, 2 catches, 30 yards. Kyle Williams, 1 for 18. Kayshon Boutte returned. You wouldn't even know he did. 2 catches for 15 yards. This receiving core needs to be better. It's nice that Hunter Henry led you in receiving, but this receiving core against that secondary should have been more productive. They should have been better. I said it all week. I felt the Patriots should just come out and sling it against this team and really try to get on them early, make them play from behind, and put the game away early. They didn't do it, and a big reason for it, pass protection was a problem. But the other reason is these receivers could not separate against a suck-ass secondary like that. That was super frustrating.
Here's the thing, too. Cincinnati's given up 27 or more points in 9 consecutive games. Well, that streak was broken today, and that includes a pick 6 that the Patriots got off of Joe Flacco. So they really only scored 19 points against historically one of the worst defenses we've ever seen. So it was not a good day for the offense. Yeah, they amassed almost 400 yards, but in the red zone, they were putrid. They cooked 4 field goals. They just weren't quite right. So you look at that, and they're going to have to build on that. This is a team, John, that I think really needs a bye. I mean, they're going to get the bye in the 14th week of the season.
This is why, Monday. John, this is why I'm not a fan of the late bye. And I've said this to people for years. I really think the NFL drops the ball with a lot of these late buys. And I know it's easier said than done in terms of scheduling the buys. But having a bye week 14, I know a lot of people like having that late bye, but I don't like it at all. I don't like it super early. But I also don't like it week 14 because by the time you get to that point, guys are breaking down, and you saw it today.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a problem in the NFL that you want to have 6 teams on a bye. If you have 6 teams on a bye, you could speed through them in a little more than 5 weeks. So you could have them in weeks, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Get them all condensed in the middle of the season so everybody's back to playing down the stretch. Yeah, week 14 is a long way out. This is a team that worked hard in training camp, got off to that slow start at 1-2, and has now won 9 games in a row. They play the Giants a week from Monday at Foxborough. And then from there, they get that week off, which they're going to need. They need that physically, mentally. I think at this point, the team's probably cooked a little bit. And that's understandable. It's been a tough haul, and they've been involved in a lot of close physical games. But all of this is fine. I just can't get these injuries out of my mind. I just can't. I'm just sickened when I see players carted off the field like that. That just is the one part of football that really annoys me. I wouldn't say annoys, but it's just it makes my heart bleed. I'm a bleeding heart liberal, I guess, and I just hate seeing these young guys get injured and have to miss half a season or whatever else.
Yeah, you hate to see it. Unfortunately, it is a part of life in the sport, specifically in the NFL, and this is why it's so important to build a complete roster. This is why it's so important to emphasize your depth. This is why it's so important to develop young players. And so, again, look, I don't want to speculate. We haven't officially heard anything from the Patriots. I would imagine Will Campbell will have an MRI tomorrow to officially determine his status. I've been in this game a long time. I don't want to play doctor, but based on the looks of it, I saw the replay of it. You'd have to think he's probably done for the year. You hope he's not, but I would prepare myself for that as a Patriots fan. Now, with ankles, they can be tricky because it depends on what you did. Unless you broke it, a break obviously keeps you off for the rest of the season. But if it's a sprain, it depends on whether it was a high ankle sprain, was it a low ankle sprain, and what can you put weight on it? There's so many variables that can determine how long you're out with an ankle. Of course, they just lost Milton Williams with an ankle injury, and he's out for 4 weeks automatically. So you'd have to think with Jared Wilson, it could be a short-term PUP injury for him as well. So now this is going to challenge their depth up front, and it's hard to find, especially this time of year. It's hard to find quality depth out in the open market at the offensive line position in terms of bringing guys into your practice squad. But now this is going to challenge their depth. You'd have to think moving forward, Vidarian Lowe is probably your left tackle. Ben Brown probably your left guard. You're going to need to try to get by with those guys, and it's not going to be easy. I mean, Ben Brown played pretty well for this team last year, played center, played guard, so he's a guy that can certainly step in and do it. Vidarian Lowe has had some good moments in the past as a starter, but he hasn't always been consistent, which is what led to the Patriots drafting Will Campbell to begin with. So certainly those injuries, again, they're the story here. Yeah, the Patriots won, they're 10-2, but 4 big injuries to 4 key guys are going to be the story here going into the rest of the week. And I will say this, John, you know what? The Cincinnati Bengals played well enough to win this game.
They did.
Say what you will. We talked about it in the preview. It was talked about all week about how historically bad this defense is and how much they sucked. But at the end of the day, these guys came to play. And not only did they come to play, they played well enough to win.
They sure did. And look at that defense the last 2 weeks. They gave up 34 points against Pittsburgh, but one touchdown was a pick six, the other one a fumble return. So they gave up 20 points against the Steelers last week. They gave up 19 points against the Patriots this week. Maybe they're trending in the right direction. If they get their offense flowing as it can, they're probably not going to make the playoffs. They'd have to run the table and win 6 straight games, 2 against Baltimore, 1 against Buffalo. Good luck with all of that. But my point being, the defense has been better the last 2 weeks, and they did come to play. I've seen them so many times this year just kind of mail it in, Ole defenses. I didn't see that today. I saw a team that put forth quite an effort today. And you look at next week's game against the Giants. Now, that looks like an easy win. Well, as we know, there are no easy wins in the NFL. Jameis Winston will be playing quarterback for the Giants, or perhaps Jackson Dart. I'm forgetting names today for some reason. Must be the old age.
Jackson Bart.
Yeah, Jackson Bart. I was thinking Alex Barth. Jackson Dart is one of those guys who's playing quarterback. Look, we know that Jameis can cause problems. He could put 34 on the board. He can also give you 21 points with pick sixes. My concern with the offensive line next week, I think the most disappointing unit this year in the NFL is the Giants' defensive line. I thought their defensive line was going to carry them to potentially contend for a playoff spot with all the talent they have there, and it hasn't meshed. Maybe they show up on that Monday night and they find their whatever mojo, and they're going to be a difficult team to deal with. Again, that's a week away. We'll do that on Patriots Pulse preview in about a week. So yeah, just get to the bye, get another win, get to 11-2, and just like I said, we have to see what happens with Will Campbell and the rest of the guys that got injured today. Not the easiest position to fill. I mean, this isn't like there's not a lot of talent at that position. It's not like look, this.
You better learn to love Vidarian Lowe again because you're going to see a lot of them.
And you've always had some hope for him. And I listen to you more than anyone when it comes to offensive linemen. And maybe with Doug Marrone as his coach, maybe he's, improved as a player this year. And he could be serviceable at left tackle. I mean, he's not going to be Jonathan Ogden, but he's going to be a serviceable left tackle, and you can keep the train moving.
Well, for all the long arm people out there, he does have longer arms than Will Campbell. So there you go. He actually has above average arm length for the position. So for the people that love long arms on their left tackles, I mean, you should be ecstatic. Look, Vidarian Lowe has upside. He's athletic. He's got the length. He's 6'5". He's got the arm length. He's athletic. He's got good feet. Could he step in and do it? Yes. It's a consistency issue with him. It always has been. I think had he been more consistent, he could have positioned himself the last 2 years to potentially be a starting tackle on this team, whether it be on the right side or the left side. It's just a consistency thing with him. And the one good thing is, and I think Patriot fans can take solace in this, is that Josh McDaniels does a really good job of scheming up pass pro. So he's not going to hang him out to dry. They're going to help him in many different ways, and they're going to try to make it easy for him. And yes, I mean, I know we're writing off Will Campbell here, but when you start talking about knee injuries and being carted off, you might as well be honest with yourself and accept the reality that, again, he's probably not going to play again this year. If he does, I think it would be amazing, and I think it'd be great news for the Patriots. Ken Matthias checks in, the one and only Ken Matthias. Shaky win. Surprised it wasn't a blowout, thoughts? No, I'm not surprised that it wasn't a blowout at all. It's the NFL. Blowouts are hard to come by. You have to play like absolute dog crap to get blown out in this league. Bengals came to play, plain and simple. And again, it's not us trying to be negative. If the Bengals were fully healthy, I think they win this game today. I don't think that that's hyperbole. I think that's a fact. The Patriots are lucky to get out of there with a win, and they're lucky to get out of there knowing that they didn't have their full complement. And in many ways, that was the difference.
Without question, you put Joe Burrow behind center and Jamar Chase at wide receiver. I think the Bengals win this game. Not going away. They're not capable of doing that against anyone. And just look at the last 4 Bengals home games. They beat Pittsburgh 33-31. They lost to the Jets 39-38. They lost to Chicago 47-42. And today was 26-20 Patriots. They play kind of crazy games at home. Now, today was a slog, and, it felt like I was watching The English Patient from 1996, where kept hitting my head on the seat in front of me and Elaine Bennis. But it got through, and the Patriots were able to win. But Cincinnati at home plays a lot of crazy games. Even the first home game against Jacksonville was 31-27. So you're going to have a competitive game against them. They're not bereft of talent. They're not at the lower level of teams. They have talent on both sides of the ball that they can be competitive. They just can't make plays at this point. But yeah, you got the win. Move on to play the Giants next week. And again, the injuries are the biggest concern.
Yeah, and again, the Giants are going to be no walk in the park.
No.
That's the thing. They played pretty well today. They lost in overtime 34-27 to Detroit, but they should have won that game. Their defense, once again, as you said, their defensive line's been a disappointment. They melted down the stretch. Ken checks back in. Chuck Matthias. Ken checks back in. Give credit to where credit is due. Bengals came to play, and the Patriots seem to take it lightly. I know you're a big fan, Sapolketti. I don't buy the whole they took them lightly thing. I don't think that that's really a thing in the NFL. I think you'll find that more in college and in high school, but I have a hard time believing that the Patriots took them lightly. I mean, one thing about Mike Vrabel is he gets these guys ready to play. There's a high level of accountability there. I don't think they took them lightly. Again, I think the bottom line is Cincinnati played well enough to win. They just aren't healthy enough to win. Patriots did not play well, especially early on, and then I think the injuries became problematic as the game went on. But nonetheless, look, as I said to start the show, adversity is going to visit you as a football team. It visited the Patriots today. They overcame the adversity. If there's a major positive that you could take out of today's game, it's that they overcame an early deficit. They overcame these injuries. They stuck with it. They hung in there and they won. And if you can do that, that pays dividends later on down the road when you start playing bigger games. So that is a major positive as far as I'm concerned. If you're a Patriots fan, you have to take that as a positive because, again, this team proved that when their backs are against the wall and they're being pressed, they can win a football game.
I was so impressed with Drake May today. Again, he has a 87 passer rating, which is one of his lowest of the season. But I was so impressed because his first 3 drives were horrendous, ending with the pick 6. He looked completely out of sorts. He looked like Drake May of a year ago. He didn't look comfortable in the pocket. He was kind of opening up his shoulders when he threw to the left. He throws a pick 6. He didn't look himself. From that point on, he was very, very good. It's like a pitcher in baseball. You give up a couple of runs in the first inning. You struggle in the second inning. You get out of a jam, and then from that point forward, you start to get dominant. That's what a great pitcher does, and that's what a great quarterback does, and Drake May's on his way to becoming a great quarterback. I know it's his first real productive year, but we see all the signs that make him a guy that, obviously the entire league is talking about as an MVP candidate this year, and maybe the guy you would take first over all quarterbacks because of his age and contract situation.
Yep. All right, John, final thoughts here before we wrap it up. We've got about a minute left. We do have one more comment. It could be, it is our friend Lauren Gaudette checking back in. She says, the lack of a running game is worrying me now with the injuries looming over the offense. I'm not entirely convinced that Drake May throwing 35-plus times a game will be a consistent way for Pats to win. I agree. I don't think that's going to be the expectation. I think that they're going to make a more concerted effort to run the football, especially now that Stevenson is back and healthy. They'll be able to split carries with those 2 guys. I think you can also find some ways to get Pop Douglas involved in the run game. You saw a little bit of that today. So I do think if, in fact, they lose Wilson and Campbell for a prolonged period of time or the season, it'll test your depth. I think you have enough depth that you can get by potentially, but it's certainly going to alter the way you play, especially in pass protection in the pass game. But nonetheless, yes, I agree with you, Lauren. I do think they need to run the football better, more consistently. I thought they did that up until today. But I think the bottom line here is they've got to try to maintain that 60-40 pass-to-run balance. They've got to tighten some stuff up protection-wise. And I think if they do those 2 things, run the ball better, tighten up the pass protection, they should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, I thought they were okay. They gave up over 100 yards rushing to Chase Brown, but Cincinnati's running attack has been really good the last month. So that's going to happen. You don't have Milton Williams, who's an all-pro caliber player, is an interior lineman, right? So that's going to happen from time to time. But I thought in the passing game, they did a pretty good job. And again, the Bengals were without their best wide receiver, Jamar Chase, and then other receivers started going out and then coming back in, Yosevich, and then we see Higgins may have concussed himself late in the game. So they weren't playing with their full arsenal. But I thought they did a pretty good job at limiting that passing game to so much. And again, the Bengals scored 20 points today. 7 came on a pick six. So in terms of the Patriots defense, they held them to 13. That's good. That's really good because that is still a pretty explosive offense. Although without Jamar Chase, it's not the same.
No, it is not. All right, final thoughts here before we wrap it up.
You look at the game and it was just a slog, but I have to remind people that you're not going to have perfection every week. I mean, you've coached football for a long time. You get the win, which is good. The injuries, put them aside and hope for the best. You're not going to have perfect play every single week. You're not going to win games 35-10 every week. I don't think they overlooked the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Zach Taylor, for some reason, coaches really well against Mike Vrabel. When Mike Vrabel was in Tennessee, he struggled against Cincinnati. Zach Taylor, maybe it's an interesting matchup. Who the hell knows? But a team that was desperate played its ass off, and you were still able to win as you were losing players. So it's still an impressive win in that sense. You get that Giants game next week, hopefully another win, get to the bye, and now you can kind of exhale going into the final 4 games of the season.
All right, good stuff there from John Sapichetti. John, thank you for coming out of the bullpen here today and filling in for John Lyons. You did an admirable job, my friend. We do appreciate it. We'll be talking to you next week for the Patriots Pulse preview show.
Absolutely, John.
All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Patriots Pulse postgame show. Patriots beat the Cincinnati Bengals 26-20 to improve to 10-2 on the season. For John Sapichetti, I'm John Serenitas. We will be back with you next week. Until then,